What happens when a Hollywood star known for staying calm suddenly finds himself pushed into a heated live debate with one of daytime television's most outspoken hosts? That's exactly what viewers thought they were witnessing when Chris Pine appeared on a panel discussion that quickly turned from friendly conversation into one of the most talked about moments of the day. Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience applauds as Chris Pine walks onto the stage. He smiles, shakes hands with the hosts, and takes his seat. Whoopi smiles. "Chris, welcome back." "Thank you. It's good to be here." Joy Behar leans forward. "You always seem relaxed. Every time you come here, you look like you've just come back from a vacation." The audience laughs. Chris smiles. "That's the secret. I try to convince people I'm relaxed even when I'm not." More laughter follows. Sunny Hostin joins in. "Well, you're doing a great job." The conversation starts comfortably. They discuss Chris's latest project, his approach to acting, and life in Hollywood. For several minutes, everything feels normal. Joy asks about celebrity culture. "You've been famous for a long time now. Do you think celebrities have too much influence on public conversations?" Chris pauses. "That's a complicated question." Joy nods. "It shouldn't be. Either they do or they don't." The audience reacts with light laughter. Chris smiles politely. "I think everybody has influence now. Social media changed everything." Joy immediately jumps in. "Come on. A movie star with millions of followers isn't the same as the average person." Chris nods. "Of course not. But influence comes from a lot of places." Whoopi notices the exchange becoming more serious. She steps in. "Well, that's true. A lot of people have platforms today." Joy continues. "But celebrities still have enormous power. Sometimes I think actors underestimate how much people listen to them." Chris remains calm. "I don't disagree with that. So you think actors should stay out of politics?" Joy asks. Chris laughs slightly. "That's not what I said." The audience reacts. Joy smiles. "I'm just trying to figure out where you're going." Chris leans back. "I think everyone has the right to express opinions. Even when they're completely uninformed?" Joy asks. A few audience members laugh. Chris takes a moment. "I think people should try to be informed before speaking publicly." Joy nods. "That's fair." The tension eases for a moment. Whoopi moves the discussion toward public responsibility. "Do you feel pressure when you speak publicly?" Chris answers thoughtfully. "Absolutely. Anything you say can become a headline." The audience applauds lightly. Sunny agrees. "That's true for all of us now." Chris continues. "Sometimes a 30-second clip becomes the entire story, even if the conversation was an hour long." Joy responds quickly. "Well, that's because sometimes the 30 seconds are the most interesting part." The crowd laughs again. Chris smiles. "I suppose that's true." For a few minutes, the conversation returns to a lighter tone. Then Joy introduces another topic. "You've talked before about people spending too much time online." "Yes. Do you think the public is becoming too sensitive?" A noticeable reaction moves through the audience. Chris thinks carefully. "I think people are frustrated." Joy interrupts. "That's not what I asked." The audience lets out a collective, "Oh." Chris remains composed. "I know." Joy raises an eyebrow. "So answer the question." Whoopi glances toward Joy. The atmosphere shifts. Chris looks toward the audience before responding. "I think sensitivity is a complicated issue." Joy immediately responds. "Everything is complicated with actors." The audience laughs nervously. Chris smiles politely. "Most things are complicated." Joy shakes her head. "No, sometimes things are actually simple." Chris nods. "Sometimes." Joy continues. "People are afraid to say what they think now." Chris responds. "Some people are. And that's a problem." "Maybe." The audience begins reacting more strongly. Some clap. Others remain silent. Joy leans forward. "Maybe." Chris keeps his voice calm. "I think people should be thoughtful about how their words affect others." Joy responds instantly. "That's different from being afraid." Chris nods. "Agreed." For a moment, it looks like the disagreement might end there. Instead, Joy pushes further. "But don't you think we've reached a point where everybody is offended by everything?" Several audience members applaud. Others remain quiet. Chris takes another pause. "I don't think it's that simple." Joy laughs. There it is again. The audience reacts. Chris smiles. "What? It's complicated." The crowd laughs. Chris laughs too. "Well, life usually is." Joy turns toward the audience. "See what I mean? More laughter erupts. The exchange remains friendly on the surface, but viewers can feel the tension growing underneath. Sunny notices it as well. Can I jump in for a second? Please, Chris says. Sunny turns to Joy. I think what Chris is saying is that context matters. Joy shakes her head. Context matters, sure. But eventually you have to answer the question. Chris responds. I am answering it. Joy quickly fires back. No, you're avoiding it. The audience gasps softly. Whoopi immediately steps in. All right. But now the discussion has everyone's attention. Chris sits forward for the first time. His tone remains respectful, but viewers can sense a change. I don't think I'm avoiding anything. Joy folds her arms. Then give me a direct answer. Chris nods slowly. Okay. The audience becomes noticeably quieter. People should be able to express opinions. People should also be responsible for those opinions. Both things can be true. Applause breaks out. Joy waits for the applause to die down. Then she responds. That's a politician's answer. The audience erupts again. Chris laughs. No, it's not. It absolutely is. The crowd reacts with another mix of laughter and gasps. Chris looks genuinely surprised. How is that a politician's answer? Joy shrugs. Because you managed to agree with everybody and disagree with nobody. The audience roars. Chris smiles, but this time his expression changes slightly. For the first time, he appears challenged. I don't think that's fair. Joy responds immediately. Why not? Chris takes a breath. Because sometimes the truth isn't sitting entirely on one side. The audience applauds louder than before. Whoopi notices the growing intensity. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. The crowd laughs. Joy smiles. Oh, we've been somewhere the whole time. Chris chuckles. I noticed. The audience laughs again, but the tension remains. Viewers can sense that the conversation is no longer just a casual interview. It's becoming a genuine disagreement between two strong personalities who see the issue very differently. And as the discussion continues, neither Chris Pine nor Joy Behar appears ready to back down. The audience is still reacting when the conversation resumes. A few people are applauding Chris's last comment, while others are nodding along with Joy. Whoopi smiles. Well, this got interesting. The audience laughs. Joy turns back toward Chris. I just think people are tired of hearing public figures answer questions without actually taking a side. Chris nods. I understand that. Do you? The audience reacts immediately. Chris keeps his composure. Yes, I do. Joy shakes her head. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're trying very hard not to upset anyone. A few audience members clap. Chris smiles slightly. That's not what I'm doing. What are you doing then? I'm trying to be accurate. The audience lets out another collective reaction. Joy leans back. Accurate? Yes. Joy laughs. See, that's exactly what politicians say. The audience erupts with laughter. Chris laughs too. You're really committed to that comparison. I am. The audience enjoys the back and forth. Sunny jumps in. To be fair, I think what Chris is saying is that issues aren't always black and white. Joy immediately responds. But eventually people have to decide what they believe. Chris nods. Of course. Then why is that so difficult? It's not difficult. Joy points toward him. It seems difficult. The audience laughs. Chris shakes his head. No, what's difficult is having a conversation where every answer has to fit into one of two boxes. A louder round of applause follows. Joy notices it. Well, they like that answer. Chris grins. I didn't plan that. Whoopi laughs. That's probably helping you. The audience laughs with her. Joy folds her arms again. Here's my issue. The room quiets. When celebrities speak publicly, they often want the influence but not the responsibility. Chris listens carefully. They want people to listen when they say something popular. A few audience members applaud. But when they're challenged, suddenly everything becomes nuanced. The audience reacts strongly. Chris waits until she finishes. Then he responds calmly. I actually agree with part of that. Joy looks surprised. You do? Absolutely. The audience murmurs. Chris continues. I think public figures should be responsible for what they say. Joy nods. Good. But responsibility also means being careful before speaking. Joy tilts her head. Or it means saying exactly what you think. Chris answers immediately. Those aren't opposites. A noticeable wave of applause moves through the audience. Joy looks toward the crowd. They're helping you today. Chris laughs. I can't control that. The tension eases briefly. Then Joy decides to change directions. Let me ask you something else. Okay, you've spent years in Hollywood. Chris nods. Do you think the entertainment industry is out of touch with regular people? The audience reacts instantly. Everyone knows that's a loaded question. Chris smiles. Some parts of it are. The crowd seems surprised by the direct answer. Joy raises her eyebrows. That was fast. Chris laughs. You wanted a direct answer. The audience erupts. Even Whoopi laughs. She walked right into that one. Joy points at Chris. Don't get comfortable. The crowd laughs again. Chris nods. Noted. Joy continues. How is Hollywood out of touch? Chris thinks for a moment. I think any industry can become disconnected when people spend most of their time around others who think similarly. Sunny nods. That's true in politics too. Exactly, Chris says. Joy responds. So you're saying Hollywood has a bubble? Sure. The audience applauds. Joy looks impressed. See, that's a real answer. Chris smiles. I've been giving real answers. The audience laughs loudly. Joy shakes her head. Debatable. The crowd erupts again. At this point, the exchange is becoming one of the most entertaining parts of the show. Neither person is angry, but neither is willing to give ground. Whoopi watches the interaction with a smile. You two should have your own segment. The audience cheers. Chris laughs. I don't know if that's a good idea. Joy immediately responds. I think it's a great idea. More laughter follows. Then Sunny shifts the conversation toward public criticism. You've been in the spotlight for a long time. How do you handle criticism? Chris shrugs. Not always well. The honesty gets an immediate reaction. Sunny smiles. Really? Sure. Nobody enjoys being criticized. The audience applauds. Joy jumps in. Even actors? Especially actors. The crowd laughs. Chris continues. You learn pretty quickly that not everyone is going to like you. Whoopi nods. That's life. Chris agrees. Exactly. Joy looks at him. But isn't there a difference between criticism and accountability? The audience quiets again. Chris nods. Definitely. So where's the line? Chris thinks. The line is whether the goal is understanding or punishment. A few audience members clap immediately. Joy notices. Interesting. Chris continues. If somebody disagrees with me, that's fine. Joy nods. But if the goal becomes destroying someone instead of talking to them, then we've lost something important. The audience applauds louder. Sunny joins in. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Joy remains unconvinced. Maybe. The audience laughs at her response. Chris smiles. Maybe. Joy laughs. See, that's my version of your answer. The crowd erupts again. Even Chris laughs hard at that one. Whoopi shakes her head. This is unbelievable. The audience continues laughing. The mood lightens for a moment. Then Joy asks a question that changes everything. Can I be honest? The audience immediately reacts. Chris smiles. I hope so. More laughter. Joy leans forward. I think people sometimes hide behind words like nuance because they're afraid of being judged. The audience becomes quiet. Chris listens carefully. Joy continues. I think that's happening all over the country. The room remains silent. Then she looks directly at Chris. And sometimes I think it's happening right now. A wave of gasps spreads through the audience. Sunny's eyes widen. Whoopi immediately looks toward Joy. Chris remains calm, but the smile disappears. The audience can feel the shift. This is no longer playful debate. Now it's personal. Chris takes a few seconds before responding. You think I'm afraid of being judged? Joy nods. I think most people are. The room remains completely silent. Chris finally answers. Of course I care what people think. Joy waits. Chris continues. But caring what people think and being afraid to speak aren't the same thing. A loud burst of applause fills the studio. Joy doesn't interrupt. Chris goes on. I think the real problem is that we've reached a point where everybody assumes motives. The audience grows even quieter. Chris looks around the table. If somebody disagrees with us, we assume they're dishonest. He pauses. If somebody speaks carefully, we assume they're hiding something. More applause. And if somebody changes their mind, we assume they're weak. The crowd erupts. Even some audience members rise to their feet. Joy watches him closely. Chris isn't raising his voice. He's not angry, but for the first time all show, he's speaking with visible conviction. The audience can feel it. Whoopi notices it too. The entire energy of the room has changed. And Joy Behar is already preparing her response. a response that is about to push the conversation into its most intense moment yet. The applause continues for several seconds before finally fading. Chris sits back in his chair, calm again, while Joy studies him carefully. Whoopi looks around the table. Well, that got a reaction. The audience laughs and applauds. Joy nods. It did. Then she turns back toward Chris. But I still think you're avoiding the core issue. The audience immediately responds. Chris smiles slightly. There it is again. The crowd laughs. Joy doesn't. No, seriously. The room settles. You keep talking about assumptions and motives, but people are frustrated because they want honesty. Chris nods. I agree. Joy leans forward. Then why do so many public figures sound like they're reading from the same script? A few audience members clap. Chris pauses before answering. I think that's a fair criticism. The audience murmurs. Joy raises an eyebrow. Really? Sure. That answer catches everyone off guard. Chris continues. I think there are people who become overly cautious. Joy nods. Exactly. But I also think there are people who mistake certainty for honesty. The audience reacts loudly. Joy immediately responds. What does that mean? Chris answers calmly. It means saying something loudly doesn't automatically make it true. A wave of applause rolls through the studio. Joy shakes her head. No one said it did. Chris nods. I know. Then what's your point? My point is that confidence and accuracy aren't the same thing. The audience applauds again. Sunny quietly smiles. Whoopi watches the exchange carefully. At this point, the room is completely invested. Every answer is getting a reaction. Every question feels bigger than the one before. Joy crosses her arms. You know what I think? Chris laughs softly. I have a feeling you're about to tell me. The audience erupts. Even Joy laughs. Fair enough. The tension breaks briefly. Then she continues. I think people are tired of experts, celebrities, politicians, everybody, telling them their opinions are wrong. A noticeable number of audience members applaud. Chris listens. Joy points toward the crowd. People don't want lectures. More applause. They want somebody to actually listen. Chris nods immediately. That's true. Joy pauses. She wasn't expecting agreement. Chris continues. I completely agree with that. The audience quiets. But listening goes both ways. The applause starts again. Chris keeps speaking. If we're asking people to listen, we also have to be willing to listen. Joy responds quickly. What if the other side is wrong? The audience reacts with a mix of laughter and applause. Chris smiles. Everybody thinks the other side is wrong. The crowd laughs. Joy shakes her head. Sometimes they are. Chris laughs. Sometimes they are. More laughter. Whoopi jumps in. Can I say something? The audience applauds. Please do, Chris says. Whoopi looks around the table. I think part of the problem is that people treat disagreement like a crisis. The crowd applauds. Whoopi continues. You can disagree without assuming somebody's a terrible person. A louder round of applause follows. Sunny nods. That's become harder. It has, Whoopi says. Joy responds. Depends on what we're disagreeing about. The audience reacts again. Chris looks toward Joy. That's actually a good point. Joy glances at him. It is. Yeah. The audience laughs. Chris continues. There are some issues that matter deeply to people. Joy nods. Exactly. And when people care deeply, emotions get involved. The audience listens closely. Chris continues. The challenge is having those conversations without immediately deciding the other person is your enemy. Applause breaks out once more. Joy waits for it to end. Then she asks the question that changes everything. Have you ever been afraid to say what you really think in public? The audience falls silent. Chris pauses. For the first time all show, he takes noticeably longer to answer. The room becomes completely still. Finally, he nods. Yes. The audience seems surprised. Joy looks surprised too. Chris continues. Absolutely. The room remains quiet. There have been times where I've thought, no matter how carefully I explain this, somebody is going to hear something completely different. A few audience members nod. Chris continues. And honestly, that's exhausting. The audience applauds. Joy watches him closely. So you do hold back. Chris thinks for a second. Sometimes. Joy immediately jumps on the answer. That's what I've been saying. The audience reacts loudly. Chris raises a hand. Wait. The crowd laughs. Joy smiles. No. That's what I've been saying. Chris laughs. Not exactly. The audience roars. Joy points toward him. You admitted it. Chris nods. I admitted that communication is difficult. Joy laughs. No, you admitted you hold back. Chris smiles. Sometimes. There you go. The audience erupts again. Whoopi covers her face, laughing. Sunny is laughing too. The exchange is becoming one of the most entertaining moments of the show. But Chris suddenly becomes serious. His tone changes. The audience notices immediately. You know what's interesting? The room quiets. Joy looks at him. What? Chris leans forward. I think everybody holds back. Silence. Joy waits. Chris continues. People at home hold back. The audience listens carefully. People in workplaces hold back. He gestures around the table. People on television hold back. The room grows even quieter. Chris looks directly at Joy. Even you. A collective gasp moves through the audience. Joy's eyes widen. Whoopi immediately reacts. Oh! The crowd erupts. Some people clap. Others laugh. The tension skyrockets. Joy points at herself. Me. Chris nods. Sure. The audience is completely locked in now. Joy laughs. I don't think anyone has ever accused me of holding back. The crowd explodes with laughter. Chris smiles. Not publicly. The audience reacts again. Joy narrows her eyes. What does that mean? Chris answers carefully. I think everybody has thoughts they choose not to say. The room remains silent. Not because they're afraid. He pauses. Because they're human. The audience applauds loudly. Joy looks unconvinced. So now you're psychoanalyzing me? The audience gasps and laughs at the same time. Chris shakes his head. No. Sounds like it. Chris responds immediately. No, I'm saying we're all more alike than we pretend. The applause becomes even louder. For the first time all show, Joy doesn't interrupt. She simply looks at him. The crowd senses that the conversation has reached a turning point. The debate is no longer about celebrities. It's no longer about public opinion. Now it's about something much bigger. And Joy's next response is about to determine how the entire exchange ends. The applause continues as Chris finishes his point. For a moment, nobody at the table speaks. Even the audience seems unsure what will happen next. Joy looks at Chris. Chris looks back at her. The tension that had been building throughout the segment is now at its highest point. Whoopi glances between them. Well, the audience laughs nervously. Joy leans back in her chair. You know what? The room quiets. I actually think you're wrong. The audience erupts with laughter and applause. Chris smiles. I suspected that might be your answer. More laughter follows. Joy points toward him. But the audience immediately reacts. Joy continues. I understand what you're saying. The room becomes quieter. Chris nods respectfully. Joy goes on. I still believe people need to be more direct. A few audience members applaud. But I understand why you're making the argument. The audience responds positively. For the first time all segment, the disagreement seems to soften. Chris smiles. And I understand your point too. Joy laughs. Careful. You're sounding reasonable again. The audience roars with laughter. Even Whoopi shakes her head. That's probably the nicest thing either of you has said all day. The crowd applauds. Sunny jumps in. I think what's interesting is that neither of you actually disagrees on the big picture. Joy looks at her. We don't. Sunny smiles. Not really. The audience listens closely. You both think people should speak honestly. Joy nods. Chris nods. You both think people should be responsible. More nodding. And you both think conversations have become harder. The audience applauds. Whoopi points toward Sunny. That's why she gets paid. The crowd laughs loudly. The tension that dominated the discussion begins to fade. The conversation shifts into a more reflective tone. Chris looks toward the audience. You know, the funny thing is that disagreements like this are healthy. A round of applause follows. Chris continues. If everybody agrees all the time, nobody learns anything. More applause. Joy responds. That's true. The audience reacts. Chris smiles. I wasn't expecting you to agree with me there. Joy immediately fires back. Don't get used to it. The crowd erupts again. Whoopi laughs so hard she struggles to continue. This is ridiculous. The audience loves it. As the segment nears its end, the hosts begin wrapping up. Whoopi turns toward Chris. Before you go, I have to ask. Did you know this conversation was going to turn into a debate? Chris laughs. Not even a little. The audience laughs with him. Joy responds. Neither did I. Chris looks at her. Really? The crowd laughs. Joy points toward him. Don't start. The audience erupts one final time. Whoopi smiles. Okay, we're ending this before it becomes a 2-hour special. The crowd applauds. Chris stands and shakes hands with the hosts. He and Joy exchange a smile. Whatever disagreement existed, it never became personal. And the audience clearly appreciates that. As Chris exits the stage, the crowd gives him a loud standing ovation. The hosts head to commercial, but the discussion is far from over. Within minutes, clips from the exchange begin spreading across social media. Viewers post reactions across multiple platforms. Some praise Chris for remaining calm under pressure. Others support Joy's insistence on direct answers. Many viewers say the debate felt refreshingly genuine compared to the highly scripted conversations they often see on television. Comment sections quickly fill with opinions. Some people argue that Chris made the strongest points of the segment. Others insist Joy asked the questions many viewers wanted answered. The clips generate thousands of comments. One popular reaction reads, "Chris Pine stayed respectful the entire time and never lost his cool." Another says, "Joy Behar wasn't backing down, and honestly, that's why the conversation worked." Many viewers point out that neither side completely won the argument. Instead, they simply represented two different perspectives. That observation becomes one of the most common themes online. Media commentators begin discussing the exchange later that evening. Several note that the debate never crossed into hostility despite the obvious tension. Others highlight how unusual it was to see a celebrity and a television host challenge each other so directly while remaining respectful. Behind the scenes, sources close to the show reportedly described the atmosphere after the segment as surprisingly positive. According to those accounts, Chris spent a few moments chatting with the hosts before leaving the studio. There was no backstage drama, no shouting, no lingering conflict, just a continuation of the same spirited discussion viewers had witnessed on air. By the following morning, clips of the exchange continue circulating online. New viewers discover the debate and begin sharing their own opinions. Some call it one of the most engaging interviews of the season. Others simply enjoy watching two strong personalities refuse to back down while still maintaining mutual respect. Regardless of which side viewers support, one thing becomes clear. The conversation struck a nerve. People related to it because it reflected the kinds of disagreements happening every day among friends, families, co-workers, and communities. Not everyone agreed, but everyone had something to say. And that's exactly why the moment continued generating attention long after the cameras stopped rolling. As for Chris Pine and Joy Behar, neither publicly escalated the disagreement afterward. The debate remained what viewers saw it as, a passionate conversation between two people with different viewpoints. And in today's media landscape, that alone was enough to make headlines. What do you think? Was Chris Pine right to focus on nuance and careful conversation? Or was Joy Behar right to push for more direct answers? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.